So I'm Ken Light. I'm the professor of photojournalism here at the Journalism School. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our program, what we do, and I think if you have questions along the way, I'm happy to answer those questions. And there's copies of our magazine, Realize, right up here. So basically, photography is a small part of the program. So there's only a couple classes, and people often ask people who come in and want to do photography, what else do they do? It's not like going to a program that's full on, just all you do is photography. And I think that's one of the very positive things about our program, that students come in sometimes as writers and end up deciding they want to be photographers, or photographers come in and they decide they want to do radio. The only standalone program is a documentary film program, and you have to fully commit to that, and that's almost like a separate unit. But you can move around and you can take multiple classes. And so usually with photography in my classes, it's a mix of people who are doing photography, dedicated, people who did photography and feel like they have enough photography skills, but they want to learn multimedia, coding, they want to learn some video, they want to learn some radio. And so the class itself is made up of a variety of different people. I like to say we have fun. Should I say that? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
So this is my class. This semester, we were credentialed and went out to the Cal football game to photograph. So I try to have real life experiences of getting out and working in a variety of different environments. We do a lot of editing, and basically I teach an introduction class, and then I teach one semester. This semester I'm teaching what I call a blurb book class, in which we have a collective project that we all do together, and we put together a book. So we actually are very, very old school. You can see here the editing process. Students print out their pictures, we edit them, select them, and put together a book. We look at a lot of photography, so it's all about learning about the canon of photography, who are the photographers that are important, talking about photographs. And tied in with that, there's a lot of non-teaching events that happen. So you probably saw out in the hallway the gallery, and every semester we have a show. It happens this semester, happens to be my work from my most recent book, Course of the Empire. And we bring in the photographer. So we've brought in a lot of amazing photographers. So just this semester, we had Jim Knockway, one of the most renowned war photographers in the last 50 years. And Jim came, met with the students, and then we had a big community event. And we've had people like Bill Owens, his picture of the little boy on the tricycle who did Suburbia, Maggie Stieber, who came, and we had a show with Maggie, her work in Haiti. Matt Herron is on the top right, his photographs from the civil rights era that he did in Mississippi in the 60s. And on the bottom is the last show we had, which is Marcus Yam, who's a photographer from the Los Angeles Times who won the Pulitzer Prize for his work in Afghanistan. And we did a show. All these people had shows in our gallery. We also have had a variety of different events. So we had, for example, Journalists Under Fire, Vietnam and Iraq, and we had the photographer Catherine Leroy and Don McCullen, I should say Sir Don McCullen. An earlier generation of war photographers come and talk. We had a show, for example, of Baron Wollman, his photographs of Woodstock, and then we had a wonderful big show of the photographs of Jim Marshall, and that's the poster, The Hate, that we did. The kind of events that are tied into the classes and the teaching, are varied. So, for example, here we had Steve Shames on the left and Bobby Seale, the founder of the Black Panther Party, and myself at a big, giant event for a book. We've actually had Steve twice, but most recently a book called Comrade Sisters, Women of the Black Panther Party. And we didn't do a show, but we did a public event that was so packed with people. I mean, it was they were out the door. It was pretty amazing. And then every 2 years, we do the Riva and David Logan Photo Book Symposium, and that will be this coming April. And it's a one-day event, and we invite a lot of amazing photographers to come and talk about photo books. And partly what I try to do in the photography program is tie in the community. So it's not just people coming to class, but there's actually a whole community of people who come into the J School for our shows and our lectures and our events. And the woman talking is Sarah Meister, who used to be one of the curators at the MoMA in New York, and now she's the executive director of Aperture. And so she came 2 years ago, and then we had a variety of great photographers come and talk about their books. We also have gone over to the Riva and David Logan photo book collection, which is in the Bancroft Library, and this is my class visiting the library, and they have this particular room of books that were David and Riva Logan's and were donated by them to the Bancroft, and there's a dedicated room which has these unbelievable photo books from the early days of photography, the 1860s, 1870s, including a lot of contemporary books, and we often go over there once a year to look at the books and see something about the history of photography. Some of the opportunities, we have fellowships, there are travel grants. I don't know if you're going to talk a little bit about the travel grants, but students, all the students who are working on projects are able to apply for a travel grant to do a documentary film, a photo project, a radio project. We have a very robust internship program. We have classes that enhance your skills. So I think, again, one of the things about our program is very skill-based. There's a photo club that meets, used to meet once a month. I know they met at the beginning of the semester. That's made up of students just to talk about photography outside of my classes. And then, as I said, there's a big photo community in the Bay Area, and they are invited in to participate in our public events, and it's a chance for students to meet a lot of people. We have the Dorothea Lange Fellowship, which is a campus-wide fellowship funded by Paul Taylor, Dorothea Lange's husband, who was a professor here at Berkeley in the agricultural economics department. And when Dorothea died, Paul created an endowment, and every year there's a $4,000 fellowship that goes to a photographer. It's a campus-wide, only for graduate students and faculty members. And over the last, 30 years, it's won by students in our photo program. So these are a couple of, most recently, Florence Middleton, who graduated last year, received it. And then before her, George Alfaro, Corey Suzuki, Yuri Guzman, who's working over at the Chronicle, Wissam Al-Badri, Rosa Furneaux. And so there's an opportunity to, again, receive money to support the work that you're trying to do. The classes I teach, one of them, as I said, I'm teaching this semester, is the Blur book class. And I'll just quickly, since we're a visual program, show you some of the work that we've done. This is us on the left actually laying out the book, and you can see we're using very old-fashioned paper on the walls with the book sheets laid out, and we're moving the pictures around, and we're talking about it, and we're actually designing the book. The first book we did was The Great Recession, which kind of accidentally happened. We didn't know it was coming, and I pitched to my students, let's do a book on the economy, and they boo-hooed it, and they said, okay, whatever. And then literally 2 weeks later, the recession hit, the stock market crashed, and there were the foreclosures, and we were there doing a book. One of my favorite books is called A Season, and this is typically how we work, and this is the cover of the book. And these are the students who were in the class, and we spent the whole semester photographing Cal football. We were credentialed, although we weren't really that interested, I would say, in the football game. We were more interested in the culture of football. And it just gives you some idea of what we do in this class. The picture on the right is actually the Stanford-Cal game at the very end. And we work collectively in this class. This is a frat house on game day. And so pretty much this particular project was students just enterprising, trying to figure a way to tell the story of Cal football. These are the cheerleaders. I mean, they did a really, really wonderful job. In the spring semester, so next semester, we do Realize Magazine. So Realize Magazine is the only printed magazine left at the J School. And this is, I think it's going to be the 22nd year of publishing Realize, and there's some examples up there. And it has become a very popular class. I think it's both the fun of working on an in-depth story. So students select a story that they work on all semester long, and we edit, and each student gets 6 pages in the magazine. We design the magazine, and again, we're doing this very old-fashioned process, which everyone really likes. It's really interesting in the digital age. Everyone's used to, working on computers, Photoshop, and so forth. And here we step back into the old world, and students print out 50 to 60 pictures that they've taken during the semester on their photo essay. And then we literally, as you can see the tape in my hand, we really literally have the paper boards, and we tape the pictures down, and we put together the magazine. So this is a 2017 issue with the lead story by Rosa Furneaux, who was also one of the Dorothea Lange Fellowship winners, that she did on the Oakland Fire Department and training future firefighters. And she got incredible access, which of course is part of the process of doing a story like this. And she spent the semester photographing with them. And it was funny, they really loved her taking pictures, and I know at the end, as they graduated, they invited her to the graduation, not to take photographs, but to be there, because they all had bonded with her during the process of making photographs. So very strong, really wonderful body of work. Also included in that issue was Brittany Hosea Small, who did a story called In the Reign of the Kings, which again was a really very, very powerful story. And she did something a little bit outside the box, which is not only did she do what I would call reportage, looking at this community of drag kings, she also did a whole series of wonderful portraits of people as they are, and then people as they transform themselves. And she's become a very, very successful Bay Area freelance photographer. And here are some of her portraits. So part of the process in the J School is in your second year, you do a thesis project, and depending on you decide, what your thesis project, what area you want to do it, whether it's documentary film or radio or obviously photography, multimedia, investigative reporting, and you dedicate yourself. You're taking classes, but you're dedicating yourself to do an in-depth project. And in photography, what that process is, we do a blurb book. So each photographer is expected to do a book between, I'd say, 35 and 40 images on a dedicated story. And then we do a show out in the hallway gallery that is installed before graduation and remains up for the summer. So this past year, Florence Middleton did an amazing, incredibly powerful project, which was on the postpartum journey of women who have recently been pregnant. And this is the cover of her book. And she received a travel grant to go to Atlanta. There was a woman, you'll see a picture in a little bit, who because of her health issues around her pregnancy and postpartum, she had a heart transplant. And with a travel grant, Florence was able to go to Atlanta and photograph this woman as part of her project. And she really spent an incredible amount of time thinking about this and working deeply with women in this community. This is the woman that she went to Atlanta to photograph. And so in the process of doing a thesis project, your final semester, basically you're meeting with me every week, and depending on how many students are doing a photo thesis, this particular year there were 4 students that we met every week looking at work and talking about it and then working together to put together a book. This is Catherine Steyer Martinez. She did a project on Long Prairie, which was a community in the Midwest that saw an influx of immigrants coming into the community and looking at the people who've moved into the community and how they have influenced it. And again, part of this was funded through a travel grant. And she went there a number of times. So that's kind of a pretty quick overview. Questions? Any of you might have? There can be general questions about the J School or questions about the photography program. I'm happy to answer. I know you have a question.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you would, just so people virtually can hear your question. How you summarize the heart of being a photojournalist. Like, there's a lot of heart in all of the images that you've sent us, but as a teacher, as a professor of the discipline, how do you teach heart? Because you're doing it.
I think part of it is through examples of looking at other photographers' work, and I think inspiration, and I think in general in the journalism community here, there's a lot of heart and there's a lot of sense that we need to tell stories of people who are unseen in a way that they are seen, and I think just by that notion you're telling difficult but positive stories, and I think that's just part of the makeup of the journalism school. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Thank you again for doing this.
Yeah.
It really helps a lot. My name is Michael. I'm a 4th year undergrad studying film and media studies at UC Berkeley here. And I really had a question about coming from a film and media background and potentially as a student filmmaker, I was wondering if you find, or no, that was wrong phrasing, but I was wondering if you find any similarities between films and photography, if there's any similarity, because they're both visual mediums, and the way that the composition goes, I just thought it was really interesting because, you know, with film you have moving images. It's literally images moving at in a faster pace. But with photography, you're sort of capturing that transient. So I'm just wondering if you have any takes on that.
Yeah, well, of course, they're really similar, and I like to think still photography is a lot more difficult than film, because film, of course, you have sound and motion, as you're saying, and you can capture a flow of something. A still photograph is just there, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. If you capture an incredible moment that really resonates with people, which is, you know, part of the skill we try to develop here, and part of the skill of being a photographer is trying to figure out how do you do that. But they're both about composition and they're both about seeing. And there are many photographers and filmmakers who have done both. They go back and forth. So Cartier-Bresson, the great French master, I mean, he started early in his career, first as a painter briefly, but then he did motion picture work before he dedicated himself to being a still photographer. And, you know, there are many other still photographers who have gone back and forth. Early in my career, I did both. And then I just got tired of working with other people, which is one of the problems you face with film. You know, you're dealing with someone doing sound, you're dealing, you know, if you're the director, you're dealing with someone who's doing the cinematography. There are many different moving parts compared to a still photograph where generally you're just by yourself, which I found a lot more interesting. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mauricio. I guess I was just wondering, like, how hands-on are you or like the faculty when it comes to like trying to, like, when you have a pitch, how hands-on are you trying to, I guess, find people that can kind of help you build that story? If that makes sense.
I think most of our faculty is pretty hands-on. I mean, we are we like to consider ourselves a boutique school, you know, compared to Columbia, which has 300 students. We're tiny, and because we're tiny, the number of people in a class is small. So my Blurred Book class has 10, and my intro class has 8. Next semester, because it realizes incredibly popular, it's too many students. I mean, there's 12 enrolled, which is the max, and there's all types of people on the wait list wanting to get into the class. But yeah, hands-on is good. And I think part of being here is you have to learn how to connect with your professors. You know, I have students coming to my office and they're just very shy, and it's like, why are you being shy? This is what they pay me the big bucks for, is to be here and support you and to talk to you. So don't be shy. And you know, all the faculty here are really amazing in their fields, which, you know, and they're still working, which is different than some schools you might go to where they're teaching a class and they did it a long time ago. In other words, they're not producing anymore. They have a history that was really amazing, but they've stopped producing. All the faculty here are still producing. I mean, that's one of the things in Berkeley at the university. You know, as a faculty member, you have to continue producing, doing books, writing articles. The radio people are doing amazing radio podcasts and radio reports. So I would say yes, it's very hands-on.
I guess like a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Has like trying to find like subjects or people, like, I guess because a lot of the examples that you provided that your students in the past have done, like a lot of them seem very like moving, very intimate moments with people. So like how do they kind of find those people? And have you had like students, I guess, struggle trying to find like subject or access to subjects sometimes? Like how does...
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely students who are inspired. And I mean, the Bay Area has a wealth of stories, just you can walk out the front door and there's a story. Some people have, I mean, this morning at 8:30 this morning, I was Zooming with one of my students who can't figure out what story they wanted to do. And they were talking about night workers. And it's like, okay, that's really interesting. People who work at night, there's a lot of them. We don't see them, you know. So what is your story? What are you going to tell us? You know, you have to disassociate yourself from the story. In other words, you're doing the story, but it's really about us as viewers seeing what your story is about. So he was an example of just someone who was a little bit lost about what to find, what type of story to do. And I threw out a number of examples. And sometimes there are stories that are right in front of you that you just don't even see. And so sometimes, I mean, my job is to push students. So, for example, the Blurred Book class we're doing this semester, which is on the campus, we've divided the campus into little sections so that everyone doesn't get stuck in one section where they feel very comfortable. So I want them to be uncomfortable. Like, you're going to go to this part of campus, you don't know anything about it. And for I want to say for the first 4 weeks, it was like I looked at the pictures and they were good, but it's like, doesn't anyone go to class at Berkeley? These are all pictures like people walking around. And they're like, oh, but we're embarrassed to go. No, you can't be embarrassed. You're journalists. You can't be embarrassed to go up to a professor who you don't know in a building and say, can I photograph your classroom? So, you know, this is part of the role of a faculty member, is to mentor and push and support the students. I mean, that's what I like to do. So I basically said, next week everyone has to go inside and you have to meet the deadline and we'll have a pizza party. Which someone said, they're treating them like third graders. I don't know, I'm just trying to motivate them. Because there can be fear. If you're a visual person and doing visual work, it can be a fear of interacting in situations. And part of it is learning to get over that fear. And I do have a couple of students in my class who are not photo centric. They're in other areas, and they're shy and they're like afraid. And it's like, you know, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone's going to yell at you, and you say, "I'm sorry."
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, I definitely have a lot of questions that students ask me oftentimes. So after we can also kind of dig into more specifics, like
Sure.
the master's project and
Yeah.
internships and kind of all that stuff.
Great. So I really like that magazine. It's amazing.
Thank
One
you.
of the thing that I noticed that there's very little test or
Yes.
contest that's provided, which I find it very intriguing because a lot of times photojournalism are being seen as just a complementary piece for major narrative, and
Right.
then it's just whatever that the test is saying, then the picture is just accompanying with that. So like I wonder how you train your students to do all the other things minimal and then use the story to actually tell, to use the image to actually tell the story.
Yeah, well, as you said in the magazine, the text, there's like 2 small paragraphs.
Yeah.
And I think they're usually happy about that part. And we want to have more space for the photographs, so that's why we have limited text. But part of it is, we do critiques almost every week, looking at the pictures and talking about them. And one of the wonderful things about doing the critique is, there's different levels of photographers. There's some, like Florence, who you saw the postpartum story. I mean, she's an amazing photographer. And she just visually pushed the other students, not by even saying anything, but during critique, she'd show her work, and they would just sit there, and it would be like, how did you get access? And, there were all those questions that then get discussed, which is part of the learning process, that those students maybe are a little bit more shy or don't necessarily know how to do the story. And part of it, I would say, is the last week when we edit. And I mean, I've been doing editing and sequencing for a very, very long time I have 13 books of my photographs that, I've always sequenced. So part of it is taking this massive amount of photographs that they've collected, and I don't know that they would necessarily on their own know how to do it. And part of it is then this process of saying, well, what's the opening picture? And what's the story? And then we do that together, and that's part of the learning process that they learn of how to put the pictures together. And it's very different having one or two pictures in a newspaper or magazine or even online, and then having a magazine where you have 6 pages and you have to decide what is the big photograph, what's the small photograph, what are the rules, how do you put pictures next to each other? And that's I don't think any of them come in with any knowledge of that at all. And that's what they learn at the end.
That's amazing. So for the story that you just showed, is it just like one of their final product, or it's just like that's a whole thesis, or are there any?
The postpartum pictures I showed you of Florence, that was her thesis project.
And nothing else, no test accompanied with all those.
Text.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just the photographs. And part of the thesis is you have to have 3 advisors. So you have your main master's advisor. So those people who are doing photography, I'm their main advisor. And then they have to have one other advisor who is within the school. That can be a full-time tenured faculty member, or it could be a lecturer who just is teaching a class but is not full-time. And then one person outside. So, it depends on, I'm trying to think who Florence got. I don't remember. Her outside person was probably someone who was interested in the subject matter. Mm-hmm. And then another student, Mark Merman, who is the director of photography at Mother Jones, is a photo graduate of our program. So sometimes students go over to him with, as a thesis advisor. And basically everyone signs off on what you've done.
So here in Berkeley journalism, if you don't want to write about anything, you don't even need to write too much. No, you
need to write. Yes, I know. This is the hard part. And this is where the photographers definitely struggle. So the first semester, we have what's called J200, which is the introduction that every student takes. We have 4 sections, 5 sections? And each I think it's 4 sections. And each section usually has a different focus, with a professor working full-time. And it meets very regularly, and they write stories. And I can tell you the photographers get beat up. They totally get beat up. But, everyone has said to me, yeah, it was good. I learned how to write in a way that I didn't have the experience before.
Thank you.
Then from there, once you do that, then you can move on to do other classes that there are. And like I said, we have a very good narrative writing program, but once you do the J200, you don't have to do another narrative writing program. You can take radio or multimedia or coding or these other things that don't entail writing, entail actually doing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, because I would fear taking J200 myself. I probably would fail.
Kind of circling back on that question of access to subjects.
Yeah.
How does one become a credentialed photojournalist?
Credentialed in what?
Like
in
in
what
the
way?
sense that you could, you have a media badge, so you can go
Yeah, so everyone gets a press pass.
In the class.
And yeah,
But-
every student coming in gets a press pass.
Uh-huh.
So 2 years you have a J-School press pass, which students use to, get access to various different things. And you're thinking after you graduate.
Yeah, like as a freelance.
As a freelancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, students, people join the National Press Photographers Association, and they have a press pass as a member you get that, people use that. Depends on if you work with a publication. For example, one of our ex-students was Sam Al-Badri, who was a photo multimedia student. He's now working in Nebraska, where he moved. He went to the Democratic and Republican convention this summer, and he was able to work with Mark Merman at Mother Jones and get credentialed through Mother Jones. Yeah, so networks. And I think networks is one of the most important things of the school. I mean, that's partly. I like to say, people ask, where do you learn most? And I say, you learn most in the hallways from your fellow students, because there's always going to be someone who's brighter than you, and then you are brighter than them. And there's a lot of exchange that happens outside. You saw the tables out there. People go sit when they're not in class and talk. People talk in the hallway. There's all that sort of stuff that happens. And then theoretically, the people you're graduating in your graduating class, not only as first years, but there's then the second years who are a little bit more experienced. That becomes your kind of network of people as you move out into the world of journalism. There will be people who just decide, yeah, I got my master's in journalism, but I'm not going to do it. You know, it's too much. And then there will be people who end up, you know, we had one of our faculty members now who is head of documentaries at Netflix, and we have people at NPR, and we have like Mark at Mother Jones, and you know they're just everywhere.
I did want to again just make clear that right. So just to speak to kind of perhaps the flexibility or being able, for example, speaking of Michael's question about, maybe let's say you're interested in the documentary program, I guess just thinking about the flexibility, and if you see students, taking photo classes, but then also doing another concentration, or just vice versa, maybe they were choosing photo, or do they come in with photo or end up, dabbling and exploring and taking other classes and then saying, actually, I do want to do photo as a concentration. So just speaking to that flexibility of the coursework and especially in that first year before you officially declare a concentration.
Yeah, I think the flexibility is one of the most important things of this program. And the thing that I think is really interesting is before the digital revolution, we had this flexibility only because we're a small school. So if you wanted to come in doing radio, there weren't enough classes. You could just do radio. You had to take other classes. And that really was a benefit for people in the program because you're learning multiple skills. And I think in the media world now, it's hard to just be able to do one thing. So if you become a radio reporter, probably they're going to want you to take pictures. And most of know, with NPR radio, more people look at the website and the pictures than actually listen to the radio. I used to joke with people who I didn't think were that good at doing photography. You should be a radio photographer. But actually, that's now a job. So I was ahead of my time with saying that. So yeah, there's incredible flexibility, and you can come in and you can decide, I want to do photo, but then you fall in love with something else, and that's okay.
We do actually have one last question, and I know it's 1:45 actually, so we're already at time. But just to, so Nosheen, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, this is Nosheen. I wanted to ask that if, for example, we're taking a class, are we able to produce our work that's concentrated outside of the U.S., like in some other country, and will Berkeley support that? Work?
We have a travel grant, and there are students that travel out of the country to do that. The funds are somewhat limited, but we do have classes that are dedicated classes, like we had the India class where you spend the whole semester in a class and then you learn about India, and then you go to India and you report on India. And I think we're having one in Colombia coming up. Yes, I heard someone. Is that Rick back there? Colombia. Thank you, Rick.
I think we've also done like Guatemala.
We did Guatemala.
We've done Taiwan, like China, but then pivoted
Yes.
to Taiwan. So yeah, definitely lots of.
So those are dedicated classes. I would say funding is somewhat limited in terms of giving students a lot of money. That's just the way it is. We're public university, but there is a travel grant that in the past has given money, depends, a couple $1,000s, I think, to do travel, and students do out of the country reporting.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of a big focus, Nosheen, is I know with our dean, Geeta Anand, that focus on international reporting and, focusing on international stories is definitely something that you can explore here as well. So I would say, yeah, if you're interested in reporting on certain stories in your home country, for example, we have, for example, a China reporting fellowship. So yeah, there are definitely opportunities and funding that is available to students that have an interest in telling or reporting on specific stories outside the country as well as across the
Yeah,
country.
I wanted to ask, about safety measures while you're working, because I have an experience while I was working for a photo journalism class in Pakistan, and I went to the Sufi shrine to take pictures of, the people who are dressed up in those, attires and, around those areas. And they're basically on drugs and stuff, and they're doing it out on the open. So while I was taking pictures, I was like, people started hurling stones at me. And so that was really scary.
It sounds very scary to me. So, the university has very strict rules about where students are allowed to travel. I don't know. In fact, we were just having a conversation, a couple of faculty members. There's some students who are proposing to go to Lahore to do a project, and the question was raised, will the university allow them to go because it may be unsafe? So we don't encourage students to go to unsafe places, and the university, not us as the journalism school, but the university is very, very strict about certain places where students may not go. And part of other travel is you get the university, you sign up, and the university has a program in which if you get in trouble, they come and save you, hopefully. And this has happened to a couple students where they were picked up by the police, and the university sent in an extraction team that went and negotiated and grabbed that person and rushed him to the airport and stood there while they got on the airplane, and they came safely back. So, yeah. Yes.
I did want one last thing. I know it's 1:49, but yeah, I guess I was going to say Ken is great. I always hear such amazing things from all the students that take your classes. So yeah, and just the amount of support that you give, and so I would just say, Ken Light, if you have questions or just want to learn more about the program, we're happy to connect you with students that are in the photo concentration as well. I know Ken is very busy, so feel free after this session, if you do want to connect with students that are in the concentration as well, that I'm more than happy to do that, and just email the journalism _admissions at berkeley.edu.
And I'm Ken Light at berkeley.edu.
Okay, I was just going to say, in case you didn't want to give out your email.
Keley.
So that's great. If Ken is I was going to say, I'm happy to field some of those questions.
We are looking for the best and the brightest in our program, and people who are motivated to tell important stories about the world. That's why we're here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ken, for your time. Yeah.